Thank you very much indeed, Owen, and good morning, everybody. My name is Murray Hunt. I'm the Director of the Policy and Evidence Centre on Modern Slavery and Human Rights. And it's an absolute pleasure and a privilege to see so many of you in this room. I can't tell you how delighted we are to see this room full. It's hugely heartening as the world goes mad around us to see so many motivated people under one roof. So I'm so delighted that you are all here. And able to join us as we celebrate the 10th anniversary of the landmark piece of legislation, the Modern Slavery Act, which received royal assent on the 26th of March, I think, 2015. We've been around for just about half of that time, the Policy and Evidence Centre, and I hope that most of you will already be familiar with the work that we do and also the unique way in which we go about doing that work. But for those of you who don't know us, I'm going to tell you a little bit about us, so bear with us if you already know us very well. We were established with great foresight, I have to say, by the Arts and Humanities Research Council in 2019 to enhance understanding of modern slavery and to transform the effectiveness of laws and policies which are designed to address that great global challenge, and to do so taking a human rights-based approach, a really important part of our identity. We very recently moved to Oxford University. As some of you will be aware, a growing number of universities in the UK these days have policy institutes which seek to influence public policy, especially in these interesting times of policy flux in this country. Fortunately for us, Oxford is one of those universities. And we, the PEC, are an unusual example of a well-established policy institute in a very specific area of human rights policy, modern slavery and human trafficking. And we work with a very wide range of collaborative partners to try and bridge that all too wide divide between policymakers on the one hand and the research community on the other by co-producing collaboratively high-quality research to try and inform that policy. So to do that, we bring together researchers, policymakers, businesses, civil society and survivors in order to co-create both our research agenda and the actual research that we produce. So all our outputs are the products of that co-creation process. Now, we have far too many partners to mention by name. Many of you are in the room today, which I'm delighted to see. But the key ones to that endeavour are the Humanities Division in the University of Oxford, which now hosts us, the collaborative research partnership which underpins us between the Bonavero Institute of Human Rights at Oxford, the Wilberforce Institute at Hull, and Liverpool University and the Bingham Centre for the Rule of Law in London. That's our kind of core underpinning research partnership, which provides a lot of capacity in-house to provide the research on which we depend so greatly. Our funders are a really important partner, AHRC, part of UK Research and Innovation, and of course, key policymakers, absolutely crucial to the success of the centre, particularly the Modern Slavery Unit in the Home Office, FCDO, an increasing number of other central government departments, but also the modern slavery and human trafficking teams in the devolved administrations, as well as policy influences like the Independent Anti-Slavery Commissioner. Most importantly of all, we put people with lived experience at the heart of what we do. We believe that lived experience is a unique form of expertise and that policymaking is always improved if it listens attentively to the voices of those who are directly affected by modern slavery policy. And this is an absolute article of faith for us in the Policy and Evidence Centre, and I'm delighted today that we're joined here by our lived experience engagement team and by our lived experience advisory panel, from whom you will be hearing during the course of the day. Your contribution to our work is absolutely indispensable, and you are the key, I think, to our success. So I want to say a few words about why we've convened today's event. We wanted not only to mark the 10th anniversary of the Modern Slavery Act, but to bring together our key partners in the field, with whom we've worked very closely over a number of years now, not merely to celebrate those partnerships, but also to take the opportunity to look ahead. To look ahead to the next 5 to 10 years, to learn from the progress we've made on our joint journey together so far, and to try and work out how we're going to engage with this fast-moving policy environment, how to influence it, and to identify together new priorities for policy and to try to influence that future policy direction. So the point of today is really to renew these collaborations that we have with so many of you in the room, to find new ways of collaborating with you, and to focus relentlessly on future policy direction, so that we can try together to give some new momentum and take advantage of some of the opportunities which are arising. So a few words about the scene that we see as we take stock and look around us. It's not an unqualified picture, of course. What we see are some major challenges, but we also see, I think, some very significant opportunities. The challenges you will all in this room be very familiar with. Notwithstanding the groundbreaking legislation which we've now had for a decade, modern slavery remains a persistent challenge in the UK today. Global issues, which we're all familiar with, the pandemic, conflict, climate change, have all increased vulnerabilities to exploitation, as have more national issues we've been confronting here in the UK, such as the cost of living crisis. But as our recent policy report points out, modern slavery referrals have more than quadrupled since 2015, when the Modern Slavery Act was introduced, with more than 17,000 people identified as potential victims by first responders and referred to the UK's national referral mechanism. And the 2024 statistics, of course, will be out tomorrow. We're not expecting them to tell a very different story. Particularly concerning is the increasing proportion of children referred to the NRM, from 29% in 2014 to 44% of referrals in 2023. That's 7,500 children, almost 7,500 children. Yet the number of prosecutions for all modern slavery offences remains stubbornly low. Modern slavery obviously continues to lead to significant harms to our communities, to the people themselves affected by it, and to wider society. It does continue really to be a blight on our society. And the persistently high numbers and their trajectory indicate that our approach isn't working, and in particular our approach to prevention isn't working. On top of all this, there are some new and recent challenges. Many of you in the room will be grappling with some of these which have appeared in the last week or two. Massive cuts to US aid, followed by 40% cuts to overseas development assistance of the UK government. We're still going to be working out the implications of that for modern slavery programming. Modern slavery itself has slipped down the international policy agenda, something the Global Commission is, I know, working hard to try to address. And the recent challenges we've seen to human rights in the context of the migration debate, including challenges to the rights and protections of survivors of modern slavery, are not going away. And we see virtually daily calls for the UK to withdraw from the European Convention on Human Rights. None of that has changed. That all sounds rather bleak. So I want to move now to think about the opportunities, or to talk briefly about the opportunities, because there are some promising signs too, I think, which do give rise to some significant policy opportunities. The relatively new UK government is unequivocally committed to international law, to the rule of law, and to respect for human rights. That is very clear, and the job of policy and evidence centres, civil society and others is to make sure that they are held to account to those clear, unequivocal commitments. There's a continued political commitment within the UK to address modern slavery. Across government at every level, Whitehall, the devolved administrations, increasingly at local government level, which is something I think we need to be focusing on, I hope we'll talk about a lot during the day, and of course business and the third sector. There's a renewed commitment from the UK government, and with the energy and the initiative of the new safeguarding minister, the modern slavery minister, Jess Phillips, who brings great experience and expertise to that role. The moving of the modern slavery portfolio into the safeguarding portfolio of that minister itself is an indicator, I think, of a more survivor-centred approach being taken by the UK government. There are a number of current legislative initiatives. The creation of a new offence of child criminal exploitation, the creation of a new cuckooing offence in the Crime and Policing Bill currently before Parliament, the establishment of a Fair Work Agency. These are all opportunities for us all to engage and to go with the grain of the policy development which is clearly happening, the legislative initiatives which are already being brought forward. And I think there is also abroad in the UK, I should say, afoot, a new interest in prevention. And I think that's a very sincere interest in prevention. The government knows that it needs help in working out, well, what does prevention actually mean if we're going to not just talk the talk, but walk the walk on prevention. So, given all these opportunities for policy development and innovation, we at the PEC think it's more important than ever to ensure that the best research and evidence informs these policy developments and that it is produced collaboratively with you all. In our first 5 years, I think we've shown what's possible bringing together researchers, policymakers, practitioners, and people with lived experience in innovative ways. We haven't always got it right. We've learned in that journey, but we have tried to innovate, and we will continue to try to innovate with your help. We've funded and worked on more than 50 projects across the breadth of modern slavery policy, and we've generated evidence which we know has been directly useful to policymakers and to practitioners. And now, as part of Oxford University, with a well-established network of partners, as well as more in-house research capacity through our partners, we think we can be even more effective as we go forward. And we want to work with everyone here to do that. So it's time, I think, for us to collectively rise both to the challenges that we face and the opportunities that we find. As a human rights lawyer, I think we've got a lot to teach human rights policy more generally. Modern slavery is really a quintessentially human rights issue of our time, in which vulnerable people are exploited not by the state itself for the most part, but by the privately powerful, whether organised criminals, people traffickers or businesses, often as a result of state failures of inadequate regulation. Human rights policy has a huge amount to learn from the legal and policy responses to modern slavery. So today's discussions and conversations, I hope, will be both a celebration and a fresh starting point, a new springboard for us all. It's fantastic to see so many people in the room from so many different walks of life. We have parliamentarians, we have practitioners, we have researchers, we have civil society. We're so delighted to assemble such a diverse group. And we're looking forward to all the connections and the collaborations that we hope will come out of this event and opportunities that we will identify today to try and make a difference together. Now, I'm going to hand over to somebody we're very proud to have associated with the Policy and Evidence Centre, Jane Lasonda, who's going to set out an opening challenge for this event. Jane is a member of our Lived Experience Advisory Panel. She's also Vice Chair of the International Survivors of Trafficking Advisory Council of the Organisation for Security and Cooperation in Europe, OSCE. And she's also Chair of Hope for Justice's International Survivor Council. Jane has this deep experience of working through institutional structures which are always challenging, but she always perseveres to bring the survivor voice to the heart of the work that organisations like we all do. She does a lot of great work to ensure that lived experience is taken seriously by international institutions. She's worked for the European Parliament, for the United Nations, for the OSCE and for the World Health Organization. She's also a frequent contributor to the media, and she's also, in her spare time, an author, having published three books, the latest called Health and Slavery, really important work on raising awareness for frontline workers of modern slavery in the health sector. She's the living embodiment for me of so much that we're trying to do at the PEC, and we're very fortunate to have the opportunity to work with her. Jane, over to you.